built on and elaborated the president's agenda and the government's agenda for the next 5 years, and then elaborated and articulated the various policies, programs, projects, initiatives, etc., that we're going to be implementing in 2021. Let me say, you ask about what feedback I've been getting. Let me say that the feedback has been immensely positive. I think many of your viewers would have seen or heard this feedback. We've had a lot of extremely favorable feedback from stakeholders across the entire spectrum of society. So, for example, we've had, first and foremost, we've had very positive feedback from members of the public. I've seen and met a number of people who have, said that they appreciate the full set of measures that the budget presents, or indeed that they belong to one particular group or one particular demographic. Let's say maybe they're young people or they're elderly people, and they said they were very pleased with what they saw in the budget. And then, of course, some of the more, so that's the general public, and then, of course, there are the organized stakeholder groups, whether it is private sector, organized labor, an NGO or a civil society body working in a particular area. And a number of these bodies and agencies have responded either privately or publicly, many of them publicly, with very clear and resounding statements, expressions of support given to given in response to the budget. And so I was really, we were as a government, we were very, very pleased by the response. As you know, the budget included not just a vision for the medium term, and I believe it was a very exciting vision for the medium term, but the budget sought also to do a number of very important things. First and foremost, to lay out the policy framework within which we see the economy going forward. And importantly, that has, I would say, probably two main components to it. First of all, navigating us through this still challenging period of COVID-19, because as you know, we still have the reality of COVID-19 with us. And so we have to still navigate, the very complex reality of COVID and how it affects the economy, how it affects people and so on, and the peculiar set of challenges associated with the pandemic. But secondly, and very importantly, restoring and rebuilding confidence in the economy and confidence in the country, putting in place the policies that are needed to ensure that the private sector, both international investment community and domestic private sector, that the private sector is once again imbued with confidence and optimism about the future of Guyana. It's very important if we want growth in the economy, if we want job creation in the economy, if we want income generation in the economy, if we want well-being of people to be raised. It's very important that we're able to attract investment, both from the, like I said, from the international investment community, but also the domestic private sector. And so this budget was also about that, about ensuring that we put in place policies, that we outline a policy agenda that restores and rebuilds investor confidence in the future of Guyana, so that investors are willing to come or willing to mobilize their financing, expand their investments, invest more heavily, create jobs, etc. And I'm happy to come back to some of those issues subsequently. And so we sought to do that, not just navigate the immediate complexities of COVID-19, but also outline a policy framework that will see restoration of confidence in the economy and in the country, rebuilding an environment where investors are willing to invest and expand and create jobs and generate incomes for people. And then I guess I should probably add interventions. The budget also contains a number of interventions that are aimed at immediately delivering relief to people. So whether it is our senior citizens through the increase in the old age pensions, vulnerable communities through the increase in public assistance, the young through, for example, the grant for school-age children, or a number of other initiatives that I'd be happy to outline. I mean, homeowners and potential homeowners through reduced cost of financing for homeowners. So the budget had all of these elements, various elements that put together represent a comprehensive framework for navigating the short-term challenges, but laying the foundation for long-term growth and prosperity.
We're talking here about transformation revolution. This is a theme that is being used by the government to really catapult the economy, given all the challenges that we've been facing. Before COVID, there was the economic downturn, and that's been hitting the world by storm. Then came COVID, which really catapulted everything. And so even to the little gains that some economies may have had, or they may have gained at that time, COVID really did a number in every economy there is. To the point where the first world, the US, they're still reeling and bleeding at their seams really to deal with some of the effects of COVID and the economic downturn. Many of the territories, many of the countries within the region have been hard hit too. We have, for many times when we've had these circumstances, Guyana has been able to stave off, but Guyana could not stave off this one because everybody got hit. We even lost so many people, many of our own, due to COVID. The vaccines have started rolling in, and one of the sectors that is being is in to benefit quite a huge chunk would be the health sector, and rightly so. Let's speak to how the government plans to propel the process as it relates to vaccines, of course, with the Minister of Health and the other initiatives in the health sector to really benefit the people.
Sure. So you quite rightly point out that this has been a global problem. I mean, the pandemic is a pandemic of global proportions, almost by definition. And so indeed countries around the world have really been reeling from the effects of this reality. We had, of course, the sort of result of an accumulation of economic policies over the last 5 years that really put the economy in a very difficult position, and I've spoken about that on previous occasions. Then you had additionally a very difficult period from December 2018 to March 2020, the period from the no confidence motion to the eventual convening of elections in March 2020, which added an additional layer of pressure on the economy because the entire country essentially was teetering on the brink of unconstitutionality, because everybody expected logically that a no confidence motion would lead to an election within 90 days. That did not happen. And so that immediately put all investors and all investments on the sort of, hit pause. So essentially the entire private sector, international and domestic, hit pause on their investment plans. That had an immediate impact on jobs. It had an immediate impact on incomes. Then on top of that, the period from March 2020 to August 2020 in Guyana was an even more difficult period because the challenges of bringing the election to closure ordinarily in most places in the world, and historically in Guyana, elections are concluded within 2 or 3 days. In this case, we had to navigate. The country had to endure, March to August. And all that brought with it, which again added an additional and even weightier layer of pressure on an economy that was already literally dying. And then you put on top of that the effects of the pandemic. And you can imagine, and many people, many of your viewers, know and feel and felt and lived this. Literally businesses closing, people, scaling back on their employment, people losing their incomes, self-employed people not being able to go about their business in a normal way, as a result of which losing their incomes entirely. Really, people were under a lot of pressure. And so you had all of these layers of pressure in Guyana, one compounding the other and then the other compounding the other. And so that's the context in which we came into government in August 2020. And that really is it, that's why the theme of the budget is a path to recovery, because with all of those layers of pressure, 2020 really was a very challenging year for Guyana. It was a challenging year for the world, and I would say because of these multiple layers of pressure, it was an even more challenging year than for the rest of the world, an even more challenging year for Guyana. So fast forward now to budget 2021, and you ask about what we're doing on the health side. I mean, first of all, we have said very clearly that our priority is to protect people, make sure that our people are kept safe. And that has meant putting in place what is necessary to protect people from further spread of the virus, minimizing the potential for further spread of the virus, putting in place what is required to treat those who unfortunately contract the virus, and then, of course, rolling out, once vaccines become available, rolling out a vaccination program with the hope of achieving herd immunity in the shortest possible time. So those were the kind of priorities that informed us. So we had, first of all, to make sure that the healthcare system is equipped and resourced to be able to handle the reality that there are going to be some people, unfortunately and sadly so, there are going to be some people who will contract the virus, notwithstanding our scaled-up efforts at shielding as many people as we possibly can by our the various protocols that are in place and the various regulations that are in place with respect to protecting people, ensuring that the healthcare system is equipped to deal with the unfortunate cases of people, the regrettable and unfortunate cases of people who do end up contracting the virus, firstly. And secondly, like I said, providing for acquisition of vaccines and rolling out of these vaccines. And that includes not just, as you know, we've been engaged with a number of our bilateral and multilateral partners with a view to acquiring vaccines. We have some partners who are in fact already donating vaccines to us. You would have seen the first batch of vaccines arriving last week, and we've already started to roll those out to frontline professionals, in particular people working in the public health system. You've seen doctors and nurses and so on getting the vaccines already. That started last week and it's being rolled out. But we are looking ahead at ensuring that putting ourselves in a position where we can roll out the vaccines countrywide. So that involves a number of things because, of course, depending on the type of vaccine, there are peculiar conditions for transporting the vaccine. There are peculiar conditions for storage of the vaccine. You would have heard conversations about low and ultra-low temperature for storage of the vaccines. There's training needed for management of the vaccines and administering of the vaccines. So we've included in the budget a provision to ensure that we're able to deploy this vaccination initiative. Our aim, of course, is to be able to get to a point where we get up to a sufficient level of vaccination to have been able to achieve herd immunity, and we're hopeful that we do get there as soon as possible. But that was a very important part of the budget, ensuring that we're able both to address the immediate reality that we want to keep as many people safe. Those who unfortunately contract the vaccine have to be treated, and then we're working towards herd immunity in the medium term. Well, not really in the medium term, in the sort of, I guess, in the shortest possible time would probably be a more accurate way to say it. But in addition to that, I mean, apart from the interventions, the direct interventions in the healthcare system, inevitably COVID has implications for other sectors too. So, for example, there's still a lot of uncertainty about how things are going to go on the education side because, as you know, schools have been reopened for some grades, but for others they're not. And so we also have to make provision for, one, to ensure that we're able to continue to deliver some level of educational content even to those grades that are not in school. And then eventually when they do return to school, first of all, keeping the school environment safe for those who are back in school, and delivering content to those who are not. And then when others resume school, ensuring that we're able to keep the environment safe for everybody who is back in school. And so there are all of these, dimensions really that emerge from the reality of the public health situation that we're facing.
All right. Minister, as it relates to the pathway to recovery and with some of the initiatives announced in the budget relating to the private sector, the manufacturing sector, these sectors, and it has been long said that the private sector is the engine of growth, and so to have them support the government in the process of further developing the country, initiatives, of course, incentives, and things that can be done to encourage them along. And once that is done with the local private sector, obviously those that are willing to come in and to invest in Ghana will see a healthy arrangement that once the locals are benefiting, they too know that they can make good on it. So the framework has been laid out, the policies have been set, but of course there is still a map that you're working on as relates to the legislative agenda to make sure that there is documentation in place so that when you do have the expats come in and make their investment, that there is value for money and that all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, that the process is one that is seamless, that they know that Guyana is a good place to do business.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we place the highest degree of importance on ensuring that we maintain an environment that is conducive to doing business. And there are multiple dimensions to this. First of all, maintaining a favorable macroeconomic environment. And by this I mean an environment that has all of the key macroeconomic indicators either at a level or moving in a direction that the international investment community and the domestic investment community regard as favorable or as attractive. So, for example, to illustrate the point that I'm making, anybody who's investing in a country wants to know that there will be stability and predictability. Nobody wants to bring their money into a country, or nobody wants to keep their money in a country or to invest in a medium and long-term investment project unless they know that the value of their investment will be preserved and will be increased over time, unless they know that they don't have to worry about things like exchange rate fluctuation or exchange rate moving in an adverse direction. They don't have to worry about things like interest rates moving in an adverse direction. They don't have to worry about things like prices moving in an adverse direction, like domestic price inflation. They don't have to worry about the economy contracting resulting in inability for them to do business and inability for them to make money. And so we, first of all, place the highest level of importance on creating the macroeconomic conditions that are favorable for doing business. But then in addition to this, on the legal and institutional side, ensuring that everything is in place, that persons coming into Guyana know what the legal and institutional framework is and are able to comply with that legal and institutional framework and are able to transact their business in a manner that is free from impediment or hindrance or frustration. And so we spoke in the budget about initiatives also aimed at addressing those issues, things like reducing some of the frustrating bureaucracy that investors sometimes face when they come in to do business. What is commonly called red tape.
Red tape, yeah.
Right? And we feel very strongly that about ensuring that investors coming into Guyana, or indeed investors in Guyana wishing to do business, are able to do so in a manner with minimum frustration, without the impediments of bureaucratic frustration, and in an environment where they know that the law will be respected and obeyed and upheld, the Constitution will be respected, obeyed, and upheld, because all of those things are very important. Big investors don't want to do business in an environment where they have to worry about whether the Constitution will be respected or where they have to worry about whether laws will be respected. They don't want to have to worry about those things. So all of those aspects that relate to the cost of doing business in Guyana are issues that are very much on our agenda and are issues that were addressed in the budget in a very comprehensive way. But there are other dimensions as well. So, for example, addressing what I would call the infrastructure gap, ensuring that critical catalytic or supportive or facilitative infrastructure is in place. That's also incredibly important. So, for example, if you think about the role that infrastructure plays on the environment for doing business, think, for example, about energy and electricity generation. For a very long time, we have identified that the capacity of our electricity generating sector and also its cost of production and its reliability, we have identified all of those factors as key impediments to growth in the economy and in particular growth in certain sectors. So, for example, the manufacturing sector, Guyana has phenomenal potential given the raw materials that we produce, given the agricultural products that we, crops that we grow and harvest in Guyana. We have phenomenal potential for agro-processing and agri-based manufacturing and agri-based business. But the biggest impediment is not the availability of the raw material. The biggest single impediment has been the cost of energy and cost of electricity. And so we have said, we recognize this and we want to do something about it. You know, in our previous time in office, we've been working diligently to realize the Amila Falls hydropower project. That project, as you know, got frustrated, and eventually, after we demitted office, it was completely abandoned. We've said that we are looking at putting it back on the front burner, but in addition to that, we have been working apace on realizing the gas to shore project, which is going to see gas being delivered onshore and used for the purposes of generating electricity at a cost that is dramatically less than the current cost of generating electricity. So the budget speaks about those policies and those initiatives. It speaks about the construction of a 250 megawatt generating capability, which will generate power for the entire grid, but in particular by bringing down the cost of generation, improving aggregate production in the electricity sector, bringing down the cost and improving reliability, immediately have an impact on the cost of electricity in the manufacturing sector, which right away helps to create conditions that would be conducive to manufacturing. So I give that as one example. There are others. If you think about it, roads, transport infrastructure. I mean, right now we operate in a certain economic space, but to the extent that that economic space can be expanded, can be, can be grown internally and also externally. So, for example, internally, Guyana has phenomenal potential with a lot more land that can be cultivated for agricultural production and for other productive activity. But oftentimes that land is not accessible. We would like to make more land accessible for productive activity. So, for example, we've allocated resources in the budget to open up new land for agriculture. These include, of course, a new road that's going to go from the Quarantine Highway at number 58 Village all the way to Kanji Creek. That is literally going to open up tens of thousands of acres of land that is suitable for agriculture. We've spoken of opening up the Parika to Goshen road. We've spoken about opening up the road from the Bartika to Timeri, which is, all of those roads are going to open up tremendous new acreage of land for agricultural cultivation. Then importantly, you know, we have long spoken of the potential of our intermediate savannas for agricultural activity. We've put an allocation in there to build out infrastructure that will improve access into the intermediate savannas, which again will catalyze and facilitate investment in agriculture. And so we have all of these things going on. I mean, as you know, I mentioned agriculture, but to mention another sector, we went out late last year with an invitation for expressions of interest for developing hotel properties. We got phenomenal responses. We got literally dozens of companies applying for or submitting expressions of interest to develop new hotel properties. We expect that some of those hotels will start construction this year. That's investment as well. But it's not investment in an abstract sense, because it's investment that's going to create literally thousands of jobs. And so all of these initiatives, and there's a, I could go on. All of these initiatives are going to be generating jobs both immediately and for the medium to longer term.
Now, as part of the budget presentation, you did, as you continue just now, talk about the different things that will happen. And so the intent is for the people to understand the trajectory of the government and where you want, where you hope to have Guyana in the next 5 years and beyond. Do you think the people have really understood, one, first, the aggressive economic drive that the budget has outlined, but two, the structural changes and architectural changes that will be derived from the projects that you spoke of, and how much the country will be transformed if you really pay keen attention to the projects that you've outlined, whether it's roads, whether it's construction, whether it's water, whether it's power. Do you think Guyanese have really clicked on to what it is you're really trying to paint the picture?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, you ask if the people understand, and I will say this to you. I know very well not to underestimate the capabilities of the Guyanese people, and I would never dare to do so. In all of my experiences, throughout all of my life, I've, I'm constantly reminded of how sophisticated and perceptive and sharp Guyanese people are. And I say that with every ounce of sincerity in me. And so I will say this to you. There's no doubt in my mind that people do understand the changes that are taking place and how these changes are affecting their lives. Some may have thought about it a little bit more than others. Some may have seen it manifesting in a more direct way and maybe focus more on the direct impact. Others may be looking more down the road. I mean, I guess it depends on people's time horizon. Some people look at, what's happening immediately. Some people look further down the road. But I have no doubt in my mind that the Guyanese people are seeing and understand fully the changes that are taking place. And I'll tell you this. You hear this too from people. In your conversations every day with people, you hear that, look, the economy is, picking up again, after a really challenging few months and after a really challenging few years, after a really challenging 5 years. In my conversations with people, I hear it very clearly that there's a lot more confidence immediately. People feel a lot more confidence. They see things happening. They see investments taking place. They see initiatives being announced. They see jobs being created. They see more business happening. Notwithstanding that we're in a COVID environment, and reality is COVID does have to be taken very seriously. We all have to ensure that we appreciate the gravity of COVID and do what is necessary to minimize the risk of exposure. I would always emphasize that. But I will go on to say that notwithstanding that the overwhelming majority of the Guyanese people are respecting and abiding the COVID-19 restrictions, and they understand the need for social distancing and to be careful and so on, you're already seeing a resumption in economic activity. And I know that people are seeing it because they've said to me that they're seeing it. And I'm seeing it too. And so I have no doubt that the Guyanese people understand this. Some people are indeed looking down the road as well, and they see this, like what you correctly described as the structural changes. And so I would say, if you think about this at multiple levels, one, there are old age pensioners who are going to be collecting their pension next month, or who collected their pension this month, and they know that they're collecting more than they did last year and the year before. And that's a very direct thing. There are parents of school children who know that the grant to school children was taken away over the course of the last 5 years and it was resumed, and they're now getting it. They know that later this year they will get a grant of $15,000 for every child that they have going to school. That's a very direct thing. There are people who are going to get their telephone bills and they're going to see that there is no longer, or their internet bills, and they're going to see that there is no longer any VAT on their data. There are people who are going to get their water bill and they're going to see that there is no longer, or that their water tariff has come down by 5%. So that there are people who get public assistance. They're going to see that their public assistance payment every month has gone up. So there is direct consequences. There are people in Guyana who are going to get a house lot that they've been waiting for, some for many, many years. They now have a house lot. They now can go into the bank. They can get a loan. They can get a low-income loan, which we have increased the ceiling for, or they can go into the New Building Society and they can get a loan from the New Building Society, which we increased the ceiling for this year in the budget. They can take that loan and they can construct their home. You know, if you pause and think for a moment, what a feeling of pride it is, it instills in you, how proud you feel as an individual, how proud you feel as an individual who is able to own their own home and construct their own home, how proud elderly parents are when they see their children, their young professional children, able to get a house lot, able to go to the bank, take a loan, construct their own home. I mean, think about it. Owning one's own home is one of the most fulfilling and satisfying achievements that you will have throughout your life, if you think about it. And we have tried in the budget to make that more realizable. Greater investment in opening up lands and putting infrastructure in place for new housing areas to be developed, putting money into the housing ministry to ensure that they can roll out the distribution of house lots and the distribution of land titles, reducing the cost of construction, including taking off VAT from a number of construction materials, increasing the ceiling on the low-income housing window from $10 to $12 million at the banks, increasing the ceiling on the NBS loans from $12 to $15 million. So there are all of those pieces. And the reality, Mark, is that that is being experienced by people every day. There are people who tomorrow are going to go into the shop and they're going to buy, well, not maybe tomorrow, but there are people who, literally in a matter of days, once the budget is passed and the measures are enacted, because we have to go through the parliamentary process. But once the measures are enacted and we go through the parliamentary process, there are people who are going to be, seeing this and feeling this literally as we speak. And then, if I may, pause and consider for a moment that all of these investments that we've described, investments in the roads, the bridges, private investments in the hotel, creating the conditions for private investment in the hotels, pause and consider for a moment the number of jobs that are being created. Think about it. Even the housing program, think of the number of jobs that are being created through the housing program. What's going to happen to the construction sector? So you're going to have a massive public infrastructure program being rolled out. That involves recruiting and hiring people. You're going to have massive private investment happening, hotels being constructed. You're going to have a massive housing program being rolled out. That's going to involve a creation of jobs as well. And then once these investments are completed, they will then add a new wave of jobs. The establishment of the hotels, the opening of new factories, the opening of new farms. And so this really is, I'm making that point really to say that this is a comprehensive long-term agenda. And it has immediate and significant immediate benefits, but it has a very strong long-term orientation to it. And that's what I think that's very important to emphasize.
A budget of this magnitude, obviously, Minister, you will have spirited discussion with your stakeholder partners, the members in the opposition. I'm sure you're looking forward to that come Monday.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the budget, as you quite rightly say, will go through, as all budgets do, will go through the parliamentary debate and approval process. That starts on Monday. We are looking forward to the budget debates for a number of reasons. First of all, because that's what happens in democracies, and we are a party who we believe very strongly in democracy, and so the parliamentary process and parliamentary scrutiny is an essential part of parliamentary democracy. So subjecting our policies to scrutiny and to debate, that itself is a demonstration of how the democratic process works, and we welcome that. We welcome the opportunity to articulate our policies in detail, have those policies scrutinized, including by our counterparts on the opposite side of the House, engage in a healthy and robust debate on those policies, and emerge out of that debate with a conclusion on the policies that we've outlined. We would like to think that the opposition will see the merit in the various proposals that are contained in the budget. In some sense, if you think about it, it would be quite difficult to disagree with initiatives that are so obviously pro-people and pro-business and pro-Guyana. And so we really are hopeful that the opposition will, guided by their conscience and guided by objectivity, see the merit in the budget and support it. But in the process, we welcome a healthy and robust debate, and we're looking forward to that debate, which is going to start on Monday.
Ultimately, at the end of the process, the people are the ones that stand to benefit from it. And so, the stakeholder partnership and involvement is important. And this is what you want to see. At the end of the day, there is something in the pie for everyone. And you do have, from your presentation, a number of incentives given, encouraging participation. What do you hope to see from that?
Well, like you quite rightly said, the budget is designed in a way that is intended to benefit every single Guyanese person. And there are multiple initiatives, whether it is initiatives intended to improve or to reduce the cost of construction, incentives that are aimed at parents of school-age children, to help them meet the costs associated with their children going to school, incentives or initiatives associated with designed to benefit our senior citizens, the increase in old age pensions, etc., which I alluded to earlier. There are a number of initiatives that are designed, when viewed as a package, designed to benefit each and every single Guyanese person. Our hope is that the budget will obtain swift and smooth passage and approval through the National Assembly so that we can move on to implement the measures that are contained in the budget. That would be our hope. But the debate serves also, the parliamentary debate, scrutiny and debate also serves a very important purpose. I spoke about, the role of parliamentary debate in parliamentary democracy. But the budget debate also provides us with an opportunity to articulate in greater detail and from multiple perspectives how the budget is going to impact, in a positive way, impact on all of the people of Guyana. And so one of the particular joys that I have had, particular sources of satisfaction that I have had from listening to and participating in previous budget debates has been the richness of the debate from multiple perspectives. And so in the budget speech, I will deal at a relatively aggregated level at things that are happening in each sector. And of course, I'm in government and I'm familiar with what's happening in pretty much most or all sectors. But almost unavoidably, every single member of parliament speaks during the budget debate, and you hear in great detail, and I think very informative detail, from literally every sector minister and every member of parliament, the detailed policies, programs, initiatives that are being implemented in the sector. And so each minister is going to be coming with a contribution to the budget debate that's going to perhaps take off, very likely take off from, you know, the main points that have been made in the budget debate, but articulate in rich fullness the policies that their sector will be implementing in 2021 and over the medium term. And so that also serves a very important purpose from the point of view of informing people in much greater detail the initiatives that are being implemented in each sector. And also the members of parliament, whether they are from, you know, and each MP of course brings their own perspective, they bring their own personal and professional background, they bring their own, you know, so some may be geographical MPs, some may come from a particular region, one or other particular region, and you know, they articulate in great detail to the developments that are taking place in their region, the developments that will be taking place in their region or in their constituency. And that itself also is extremely important from the standpoint of informing people. And so I've really enjoyed in the past, and I have no doubt that I'm going to enjoy now, listening to the richness of detail that is provided by members of parliament on the government side, and importantly, listening to our colleagues on the opposite side of the house. Oftentimes you may hear something that is said that perhaps may on the surface sound like it is critical or sound like it is not in agreement with what we're doing. And it's often informed, whatever the reason may be, but if it goes unanswered or unexplained, I mean, first of all, it conveys to you what some of the misconceptions are. You know, sometimes points are made that reflect a lack of understanding of what the government is doing. And it presents you with a very useful opportunity to explain and clarify to people and to respond to some of the issues that are raised, to say, hang on a second, that's not quite what you're describing, is not quite how it works. This is how it works. And so the budget debate is also very, very important, you know, mechanism for informing people about government policies, public policies, how they will impact the country, how they'll impact, you know, everybody in the country. And so, you know, I'm saying this really to make the point that the budget debate is not some abstract thing that only politicians should be interested in. The budget impacts on everybody's life, and everybody has a very legitimate interest in the budget. And the budget debate serves a very important purpose of elaborating the government's policy agenda, subjecting it to scrutiny and debate. And I think that serves a very important function of informing people. And I think a better informed people can only be a good thing.
Right. Now, we're talking here about the parliamentary agenda, and primarily speaking about what's going to come out of the process, because the people are looking to see what's going to come out of it. And I know this is where your heart is, because you speak oftentimes about seeing the man at the bottom benefit from it. The path that was created, or the trajectory that was created, or the design of the government's thrust and the program speaks to quite an extensive program and projects. And so in the short term, people may want to see it happen just at the end of the deliberations, hoping that some of these projects will hit ground and run like that. Some of them have been designed to do that, especially those that roads, bridges, and that kind of thing. But some of the other projects will take a while, and it will also take the involvement of the people to buy into it. Let's talk about that.
Sure. Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, there are things that are outlined in the budget that we can move on very quickly, and our intention is to proceed with implementation as quickly as possible. you quite rightly said that, certainly with respect to those initiatives that we can move on immediately once the budget is approved, we will move with them right away. Others will take a little bit more time to in some cases you have to design before you can go out to tender, before you can start construction. And in those cases, we go through the sequence of steps that are required to make sure that we do what we're doing properly. Because our commitment also is not just, we would like to implement everything as quickly as possible, but we would like to implement everything that we're doing as well as we possibly can as well. And so we're certainly going to be looking to strike that balance. Moving forward ahead, I can tell you that the President's mandate to all of his ministers is that we are to proceed, and he has constantly reiterated this, that we are to proceed with implementation immediately. And of course, he has also emphasized that we are to ensure that we implement everything that we implement properly as well. And so that's the charge that President Ali has given to his entire cabinet. Those are the marching orders that he's given to his entire cabinet. And those are the instructions that we will be guided by. So the people of Guyana can be assured that there are things that they're going to see immediately. Many of the budget measures, once we get past the approval of the budget, those measures are going to be implemented and they will see the impact of that immediately. But the projects will also be proceeding with the implementation of the projects, which will in turn see the benefits that we've outlined materializing. The important thing, and I can't miss the opportunity to say this, the important thing is that, and I really do say it on every occasion that I get the opportunity to say it, we are a working government. President Ali is a working president. He is hard at work, he's full of energy, he's constantly pushing to get things done quickly. He constantly ensures that his ministers understand that that is his instruction. As you see, we're out there, we're constantly, whether it is speaking with the media to make sure that the media and the people understand what we're doing, interacting with people to understand what their challenges are, fixing those challenges where they're identified, ensuring that projects are moving along as quickly as we possibly can. We're a working government. We're a lot more concerned about getting the real work done rather than ceremonial things.
Right. And finally, Minister, I'll give you 4 minutes to hit this one. And this is with the public servants. We talked about it when you first came in. And of course, this is one big question people have been asking, whether or not the public servants were they catered for. You made some points earlier that they were, but if you can spell it out for all and sundry to understand where the public servants fall in this entire scenario and scheme.
Well, I want to say this, Mark. Political leaders have a responsibility to be open and frank and honest with their constituency and not to distort or misrepresent facts. It is a well-known fact. It's a well-known fact, well established over many, many, many years. And your viewers just have to go back to the recordings of last year's budget debate or the previous year's budget debate or the previous year's budget debate. It's a well-known and well-established fact that future salary increases or potential adjustments to wages and salaries of employees of the public service, and I say employees in the central government because it's public servants and also members of the teaching service, members of the discipline services, etc. It's a well-known fact that there's a lump sum allocation that is provided in the Ministry of Finance budget to provide for revision of wages and salaries. That is documented in the budget debates and the scrutiny of the budget estimates for as long as I can remember, which is more than 20 years. This allocation has been in the budget. So what we have always done is we provide an allocation, a lump sum allocation within the Ministry of Finance budget to cover what we call revision of wages and salaries. It's now called other employment cost. And it addresses things like the possibilities of new recruitment, one-off payments, extraordinary payments, adjustments to salaries, etc. This is a well-established fact. In the 2021 budget, anybody who is vaguely familiar with the budget estimates knows and can quite easily find in the budget estimates that there's an allocation of $10 billion to meet the cost of revision of wages and salaries. And that's a fact. It's verifiable. It's there in the estimates. Now, to suggest otherwise is, in my opinion, not the responsible thing to do, to be honest with you. A quick cursory look through the budget estimates will indicate very clearly that that allocation is there. And so I can say definitively, Budget 2021 includes an allocation to cover what we describe as other employment cost, which includes revision of wages and salaries, which includes a provision for a potential increase in salaries to public service to employees in the central government. I say employees in the central government rather than public service employees because, like I said earlier, it includes public servants, it includes members of the discipline services, it includes members of the teaching service as well. So that's the first thing that I want to say. There is an allocation in there to do that. But I want to say further too. Public servants also build homes. So public servants, like
will benefit down the line.
Like other Guyanese, they also go to the hardware store and they buy building materials. They're also going to the bank and looking to take loans to build a home. They're also applying for house lots and getting those house lots. Public servants also pay for water. They're going to be getting that 5% reduction just like every other Guyanese water customer will get. Public servants also pay data on their pay for data on their telephones. They're going to see in their internet bills next month that the VAT on data is gone. And so those other initiatives, public servants also have children going to school and will also be benefiting from this $15,000 grant per school age.
So they all will benefit.
So they will too. And so, it is an indisputable fact that every single Guyanese will benefit in one way or another from Budget 2021.
Dr. Ashni Singh, Minister of Finance, thank you so much for being with us. And we are out of time, but I think you covered all of the questions that have been asked, and as well getting us ready for the debates come Monday. Thank you again.
Thanks very much, Mark. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm Mark Watson. Thank you so much, and goodbye.